Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I will be splitting my time with the honourable member for Banff Airdrie. I rise in strong opposition to Bill C-21, the latest ideological, evidence-free attack by the Liberals on law-abiding firearms owners.
Unbelievable.
Mr. Speaker, Canada faces a crime wave after 8 years of this disastrous Liberal government. Violent crime is up 32%. Gang-related homicides have nearly doubled, up a staggering 94%. An unprecedented 10 police officers since September have been murdered in the line of duty. Random violent attacks on public transit and on the streets are now commonplace in cities right across Canada. More and more Canadians are feeling less safe in their community, and that's because more communities that once were safe are no longer safe or less safe than when the Liberals took office.
Shameful.
By contrast to the staggering 32% increase in violent crime under the Liberals, under Prime Minister Harper's Conservatives, violent crime went down 33%. In fact, the Liberals have managed to do something that no government has done, which is to reverse a 30-year trend in which Canada, until these Liberals came to power, had seen a downward spiral in crime. Now it's up 32%. And I say that because, Madam Speaker, this violent crime wave did not happen in a vacuum. It didn't happen by accident. It didn't even happen as a result of inaction on the part of the Liberals. It happened as a result of very deliberate and very specific policies regarding Canada's criminal justice system embraced by these Liberals. The Prime Minister has embraced full stop a series of virtue-signaling woke criminal justice policies. These are policies that the Prime Minister has imported from the United States. Disastrous policies that have been implemented south of the border by radical left-wing big city mayors and district attorneys, policies that have resulted in large swaths of once great American cities such as Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle, and Portland, Oregon, that have turned into crime no-go zones. It is these American-style policies that this Prime Minister is importing in Canada. Let's look at the disastrous record of this Prime Minister. This Prime Minister, in 2018, is responsible for passing Bill C-75 that established catch-and-release bail. Thanks to this Prime Minister, a judge is now required to make it the primary consideration that an accused be released at the earliest opportunity with the least onerous conditions possible. This has resulted in a revolving door. What it has meant is that in many instances, criminals are released back onto the streets and are out committing crimes the very same day that they were arrested for committing crimes and then released. That's catch-and-release Liberal bail. Let's look at some of the statistics as a consequence. In the city of Vancouver, 40 criminals, 40 hardcore criminals, are responsible for 6,000 arrests in a year. That's 150 arrests per offender. What Liberal catch-and-release bail has meant is that a small number of hardcore criminals are overwhelmingly and disproportionately responsible for a significant number of criminal incidents. And, Madam Speaker, in Edmonton, a community that I'm proud to represent in this place, a young mother, Carol Ann Robillard, and her 11-year-old daughter, Sarah, are now dead, thanks to Liberal catch and release. Carol Ann and Sarah were brutally murdered, stabbed to death, out of all places, a park at an elementary school. They were brutally stabbed to death by who? A total stranger who happened to be a hardcore violent criminal who, thanks to Liberal catch and release, had been released on bail just 18 days prior. Who was this violent offender who stabbed to death an 11-year-old girl and her young mother outside of an elementary school? He was someone who had a 14-year rap sheet of committing violent attacks. He had been convicted multiple times of such serious offenses as aggravated assault, assault with a weapon, multiple robberies, assaulting a correctional officer, and last year attacked a 12-year-old girl on an LRT in Edmonton. That's who was released thanks to Liberal catch and release. He should never have been released. He should have been kept behind bars. He should never have been on bail. It's outrageous that he was. And it's outrageous that the folks over there across the way can so sanctimoniously defend, frankly, a series of policies that are indefensible, that are putting lives at risk and endangering public safety. How dare they? You know, because it's not just catch and release. This is a government that last year passed Bill C-5. Right. Bill C-5, the fourth piece of legislation that this government introduced in this Parliament. Obviously a top priority for this government. What does Bill C-5 do? Well, it significantly expands house arrest, for one, for some very serious offenses, including sexual assault, kidnapping, and human trafficking. In other words, criminals convicted of such offenses will not have to spend a single day in jail. What about firearms? We hear a lot about their professed concern about firearms. Well, it seems that they are obsessed with firearms as objects, but they haven't figured out that firearms don't commit crimes. Criminals with firearms commit crimes. And what have these Liberals done about criminals who go out and commit offenses with guns? Well, Bill C-5 actually eliminates mandatory jail time for serious gun crime, including robbery with a gun, using a firearm in the commission of an offense, discharging a firearm with the intent to injure, and weapons trafficking. That's the approach of these Liberals. It is a policy that is a policy of the woke. It is a policy grounded in absurdity, and compounding that absurdity is Bill C-21, now before the House. A bill that doesn't take off the street illegal firearms, a bill that doesn't keep repeat offenders behind bars where they belong, a bill that, incredibly, goes after law-abiding, licensed firearms owners among the group of Canadians least likely to commit a crime. Those are the people that these Liberals are going after. It couldn't be more absurd. This government's set of priorities couldn't be more backwards. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions et commentaires, questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Avalon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'll ask the Honourable Member opposite the same question that I've asked many times this evening during this debate. They keep saying that we're allowing people to not use commonly used guns, whether it be hunters, farmers or whatever, that these weapons are going to be banned forever and a day. Can the member list one legally used hunting rifle that is going to be banned by this bill?
For St. Albert Edmonton.
Madam Speaker, what I will say to my friend, the member for Avalon, is that the Prime Minister said this in December, quote, "There are some guns, yes, that we're going to have to take away from people who were using them to hunt," close quote. So those are the words of the Prime Minister. Now, it's true that the Liberals, after considerable pressure, withdrew their table-dropped amendments, but they've established a firearms committee that is going to be tasked with future bans, and the Prime Minister has signaled very clearly that hunters are a target of this government.
Good job.
Questions et commentaires, l'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Avignon, Alamétis Matane Matapédia. Thank you, Madam Speaker. To hear my colleague, it would seem that C-21 is the worst bill that's ever existed, and I'm not sure that he's aware that members of his party voted in favor of a number of amendments in order to improve the bill. Whether we talk about the ghost gun measures, the yellow flag measures, and even his colleague, and I just want to mention the member for Bruce Craig Owen Sound, put forward some amendments to ensure that gun owners could give them to someone else while they were asking for help to treat their mental health problems, and everyone was in agreement. And they also voted in favor of some of the Bloc Québécois amendments to ensure that a license was required for the chargers. So is the member aware that the Bloc Québécois has helped improve the bill?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the honourable member from the Bloc. It's true, Conservatives supported certain amendments at committee. We helped improve a terrible bill to make it a slightly less terrible bill. The member cites red flag laws. I would note that Section 117 of the Criminal Code already provides law enforcement with the authority to seize firearms when there is a safety issue without a warrant. So that aspect of the bill really is no improvement, and it doesn't take away the fact that the entire concept of the bill is misplaced. It targets law-abiding firearms owners, people who aren't going out committing crimes. That's who is the target of Bill C-21. This government should really be going after the gangs and criminals who are going out and committing crimes with guns.
The member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I mean, my honourable colleague has been talking about, going after crimes. I'd like to actually hear his opinion on a part of the bill which has been overshadowed by much of today's debate. The National Association of Women in the Law contributed greatly to the committee hearings on this bill. They actually submitted a lot of amendments which really helped improvement. And they have publicly stated that many of the provisions in C-21 are going to help women in domestic violence situations. So providing that a firearms license must be revoked when there are reasonable grounds to suspect that someone may have engaged in family violence, making sure that a protection order, making sure that someone will be ineligible to hold a license if they could pose a risk or a threat or risk to the safety of another person. I'm just wondering if my honourable colleague can talk about that. This is a very well-respected organization who studied the bill, came with great amendments, and they have publicly stated that through these provisions, it's actually going to make lives safer.
Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Madam Speaker, some 20 women's organizations came before committee and said that the bill was problematic. And specifically, the so-called red flag provisions of the bill were problematic by virtue of the fact that Section 117 of the Criminal Code already gives law enforcement the tools necessary to seize weapons when a woman is in danger. What the Liberals instead are providing is that instead of law enforcement doing their job, that a woman who is in danger now be required to go to court. They said this is burdensome, it puts women at risk, and it doesn't do the job.